What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me are my two great co-hosts, Fede Perez and Ralph Hannah. And guys, look, I feel like we've been riding this wave since September. Has the Alfaro hype train been stopped? Well, we need to go and continue on board because we are obviously talking just days after another great combo in the World Cup qualifiers for the 2026 World Cup. Paraguay getting the results that they need against Ecuador and Venezuela. We'll talk about more of what's going on from those two games, what we've liked, what we even didn't like, and yeah, just moving forward for November, the final two games of the year. Two interesting games. I can already see Fede has one guy on his mind for next month in the background. That's a guy that we're going to be talking about very, very soon. But let me go to Fede first. Let me go to the guy. It's been a good week for Paraguay, I would say. Obviously we're speaking a couple days after they won the U15 Sudamericano, the third title in the history of the Paraguay national team. And yeah, it's kind of been good vibes for Paraguay at the moment, especially coming off these results against Ecuador and the win against Venezuela. But how are you feeling, man? Are you ready to get your visas and trips and tickets and everything? Are you ready to go to America?
Hi, Roberto. Hi, Rob. Hi, everyone listening to Guarani Vision. Obviously, we're getting ready for that trip, man. We got to be ready for that situation because our team, the Roja, is finally looking like a World Cup team, and like they're finally deserving it, and they really look like they're getting it together. It's been really a magical run lately. After the Copa America, we were all so beaten down, and who would have thought that things were gonna pick up so fast? I would even use the term magical so far because of everything that has happened. That second half against Venezuela was really magical. The way the team was able to turn around the whole situation. The point we got against Ecuador was a very important point after beating Venezuela. So we're in there, guys. As of right now in the standings, we're in the next World Cup. So things are looking a lot better than they were a couple of months ago. And obviously, Gustavo Alfaro, the new coach, his new ideas, the way that he's doing things, it definitely is clicking. He definitely has a lot to do with all of this. So we got to talk about what he did, what he brought to this team, what happened in these two games, and obviously what is coming up. Yes, I'm already thinking about Messi. I'm already thinking about Argentina. I'm already thinking about Bolivia. Very hard games ahead, but we got to enjoy it, guys. It's a magical time for our Roja, not only the senior team you mentioned, also Roberto, the under 15, and I'm really happy with those guys. The youngest Roja, the little Roja, we could even say, was able to clinch the title, the South American title, and we're right there, guys. I mean, we're doing it really, really good right now, and I don't want to get off this wave, Roberto. I want to get used to this feeling, like I told you before.
We need to continue this high tide ride, Ralph. Look, I think certainly if you had asked anyone before all these games that happened against Brazil, Venezuela, um, Ecuador, and of course Uruguay to get 8 points out of 12, I think that would have been wishful thinking. But here we are, like you said, like Rafael said, we're back in the qualifying spot. It's the first time since round two that Paraguay are back in a qualification spot for the World Cup. So to have to wait, literally 8 match days to go back into that shows that this Paraguay team really did not give up, and we saw that. We saw that even in the game against Venezuela. We'll talk about the Ecuador game in a bit, but I think the one thing to stick out from this kind of combo is the fact that this team never gave up. The fact that when they did concede that first goal, we all remember in the past seeing Paraguay's kind of feel defeated after they concede early on or just concede a goal. But no, it changed completely in that second half, whatever Alfaro did, and obviously the two goals from Sanabria. I think it shows that from the beginning, you kind of see a different mentality already to get the points in away fixtures, to get the wins at home, and to not give up when there is that kind of, resilience and adversity that goes against this Paraguay team.
Yeah, that's right. Hi, everybody listening and tuning in. It's definitely a positive time, and this positive attitude that you talked about, this kind of winning mentality, is not really something we've seen around the Paraguay national team for such a long time, and it's maybe been what was missing for the last few coaches, right? They just couldn't try and get that mentality, that because if we look at the players, the players haven't changed a huge amount from the Copa America, especially the key figures. But what's really changed is like you were saying, that mentality. It was the first time since 2017 that Paraguay came from behind to win a World Cup qualifier. Sanabria was also the hero that night. That was in Barranquilla, Colombia, which put them on the verge of qualifying. I think it's the first time since 2021 that they scored twice in a World Cup qualifier as well. So remember, we've been struggling so much for goals, and now we finally found two in that key moment. Oh, Roberto's just reminded me, yeah, 2022, right? When in the Ecuador game when they played in Ciudad del Este. But Paraguay is just looking much better, much more confident. And I think what we're seeing is Alfaro he's not really revolutionized things in terms of tactics or players, but from the psychological side and from the whole attitude side, it's totally changed. And suddenly you have this different feeling going into the next two qualifiers where we're actually in the right position, and it's more about now. He's talked about recovery, right? He said we're in the etapa de recuperación, so like the recovery stage. And it's like, well, now we're actually in the right stage where we want to be. So where do we go from here? And it's exciting to think that we're less than a month away for two more games for this Paraguay national team.
Yeah, like we had last month, the fact that we're gonna get excited, albeit these two games are gonna be probably the most difficult of the three. Sorry, of this, yeah, literally the six that are played in this year under Alfaro. So, that's going to be a really big test of adversity and commitment and wit from this Paraguay team. And we'll talk about that soon. But let's go to the game that we saw in Quito, what we saw at the Estadio Rodrigo Blanco in Quito, Ecuador, Rodrigo Paz Delgado, sorry. It was one of those games that I think obviously the attention came to Gustavo Alfaro, obviously managing his old team. Ecuador, and I think we all really wanted to get something out of that, even a historic win. But we all kind of advertently tried to go for this tie. I think it was kind of the safe bet, and it worked out. Albeit, I think honestly it was a really good result and performance from a lot of these players. I think someone like Asuncion Sanders, who made his debut on that left side, I think did pretty well. I think it was always going to be a case of wanting to, be dominated by possession. It's 77%, next to 23% for Ecuador, 14 shots versus 3, 5 shots on target, and only 2 for Paraguay. So I think it was one of those defensive games that I think was expected. But here's my question to you. I want to go to Ralph on this first. Do you feel as if though Paraguay should have been able to get that? Because of course, I think now being able to get that result, and this Ecuador side has also kind of been a bit I wouldn't say a downward spiral, but I think it was certainly not the Ecuador of the past that we've seen under Alfaro or even under Felix Sanchez Bas. Do you feel that Paraguay kind of missed this opportunity to try and get something historic, or can we just say, this is something that we wanted to get, and that way we can, obviously focus all our energy on going all attack against Venezuela?
Yeah, well, we're as they say in Paraguay, we're talking with the Monday newspaper, and we can see we've already beaten Venezuela. So it did work out the way I think Alfaro had planned it, because we see where he went with 3 at the back or 5 at the back against Ecuador. He was really looking for that 1 point and then banking to then be able to beat Venezuela and take 4 overall. So should we have gone more attacking? I mean, now maybe it's a moot point because we did win the game against Venezuela. But I see your idea, right, of this was an Ecuador team that maybe isn't as strong as they have been in recent years. I think Alfaro took into account a couple of things. One, that there was no Diego Gomez, so that was obviously a big miss. And then 2, just looking at where both of those teams were in the standings, really the onus was on Ecuador to try and get the win at home rather than Paraguay to have to. We didn't really need those points. A draw kept us together. And actually, I think right now we're on the same points, Ecuador and Paraguay, right, going into the next round of games. So I think based on all of that, Alfaro made his mind up, and you can see with the 5 defenders that he was going to be happy for a tie. He takes off Julian Cesar after 60 minutes, more or less. So I think at that point, he's also saying, I think we're going to be good. We're happy with what we got. And it was really a very strong performance from Paraguay. I mean, for as much as I think you mentioned 76% possession, but Ecuador didn't, their only shot inside the box was in the very last minute of stoppage time, William Pacho with a shot that doesn't even test the keeper. But they really did just defend the box really well. Ecuador didn't have an answer, and I think that's been a problem going back to the Copa America for them as well, right? They haven't been very good creatively and or finding those ways to play teams when they have to have possession rather than when they're playing on the break. And so I think it was well set up from Alfaro, and he had a clear plan. It worked, and it's definitely not a game to remember, but it did the job, and it was important for us.
Yeah, this is what I'm loving about Gustavo Alfaro. He has the experience, he knows what he's going up against, and he has a plan, just like Ralph was saying. He had a team that he was gonna go with, and he changes that up. I think I talked about that on our last episode. You know, he's flexible, tactical. When he wants to play with four in the back, he plays with four. When he wants to play with 3 or 5, he can do it because as of right now, he has a very good defense. He has 3 center backs or even 4, I would even say, if we put Junior Alonso also there fighting for an opportunity. They're always doing a great job. They know each other very well. They're on that last part of their process, and they're playing for something. So every minute that they get, every opportunity, I think they're making the best out of it. And I think that's what was best out of our team against Ecuador, our defense. Also, Gatito Fernandez, our goalkeeper. And I think that's when I go back to Gustavo Alfaro and the way he planned things out. This team was practicing there at Quito 2-3 days before. Gatito Fernandez was getting a feel of how the ball moved up there, and you could see that he never felt uncomfortable, even though they didn't get that many opportunities. We talked about this before the game. Ecuador, they have a lot of firepower, but they haven't been able to score lately, and they really went out cold against us. And just like Ralph was saying, they had the responsibility, but they didn't know what to do with it, and they found that we didn't let them do much. And we had our chances, I believe, in the first half. 2 shots at target, 3 shots in total. You had your opportunities, but yeah, we aimed for the tie. I think the coach was very happy with that situation. He knew that the important game was back here in Asuncion against Venezuela. And props to them, just the way it turned out with Andres Cubas, the defensive part of the team really playing well in Ecuador, and it was a battle, Roberto. I got to give it to you because you called it just like it was, a very tactical game and no goals in that match.
Yeah, I mean, some would say it probably is anti-football, and I think one of the things now to really go ahead is to see what more opportunities we have to get results away, because I think now that's kind of been the objective. It's kind of a step of plans. It's just, try to look at getting some results away. Obviously, you got Bolivia, which again, it's going to be a very difficult ask to get 3 points, but I think getting the results that you can get away and winning at home take you to the World Cup. I think it's that simple, Ralph. I think, that's kind of the mentality. Like, even if it's not as ugly, even if it's not as pretty as one would think, like you said, 4 goals in 10 games so far. Yeah, as long as they're able to get those 3 points and the draws away from home, and then they just keep building up and up, that takes you to the World Cup.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and that's also what Alfaro talked about in his very first press conference, right? He said it's about the accumulation of points, the World Cup qualifiers. And if you get those by doing 4 per combo, then you will end up in a World Cup. I mean, you're taking Ecuador obviously have just missed a chance. They've dropped 2 points because of the home game. It was the same for Uruguay last time round. Next up is Bolivia, if we can somehow hold them, because Bolivia has become a rival the way they're playing at the moment. So by getting that 1 point away, you're taking 2 from your direct rivals. And I think this is going to be the formula we see, right? He's repeated it and it's worked. And you get the feeling that Alfaro, he's not the kind of coach. He likes a gamble sometimes, but he's not the kind of coach that would set up, for example, in a 4-3-3 and away from home. It's really not going to happen. So you might see him in the game if he sees an opportunity, but the most likely is we're going to see this same kind of pattern for the next World Cup qualifiers, which will work and take us to the World Cup if it continues with the home wins. That's the key thing.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see that attacking team yet, but if the team does start to get confident, he talked about that before this game against Ecuador, that he wants players on the side that can attack. He didn't do that on this game, right? I mean, Juan Cáceres can barely attack. He's much better defending. And Agustin Sandes, even though he tried to take the ball up there a couple of times, I don't think he won that spot over either in this game, just like Alex Arce, right, guys? I mean, those I think were the new names, or the names that I was particularly watching in this game, especially Alex, that we talked about so many times, of him scoring in that same stadium and getting a couple of opportunities, but not as much as he probably wanted, right? He was in the mud. He was fighting against giants of that Ecuadorian defense, and he didn't get many opportunities. Maybe he's kind of falling back in that consideration, thinking that Pita has kind of proven himself and he's kind of stepped up in big games. And well, we're going to talk now about Venezuela and what the game that Tony Sanabria had. So, you know, in that fight for that center forward position, maybe it wasn't a good game for Alex Arce after all.
Yeah, and I think the same questions kind of pose again about the strikers. You know, who we can't really go for a trustworthy number 9 consistently, because he tried Pita, he tried Arce, now he tried Sanabria, albeit the last one worked out well. Who's to say that might not work next month? That's what we'll have to wait and see. But let's go to what we saw in Sajonia, in the Defensores. This was a big one, Fede. This was a big one. And I think, you know, there was this sort of vibe at an all-time high because of the result they've been getting. I think they understood that they needed to pack out Defensores del Chaco in order to have the players feel the fans on them, to not let Venezuela feel intimidated, that they say, hey, you're coming to our place and we want to make you feel like the visitors. And we saw even in the beginning with the lineups, it was all attacking. You had mentioned that, Fede, but man, we saw Ramon Sosa, Julio Enciso, Miguel Miron, and Diego Gomez all starting with Pita in that striker position. And it didn't work out as what we saw in the first half. I mean, we saw that with the first goal from Amrambo, with Yerson Soltero getting the assist, and Ramon Sosa, I think, did a really poor job trying to close in that space. And then when we got that penalty in the 41st minute, Julio Enciso with a really poor shot towards Romo, and you even saw in the reaction of how he was very emotional for missing that. I mean, it was the worst imaginable half you can have for Paraguay in that game in Asuncion.
It was an emotional night, guys, right? I mean, coming into the game itself, I mean, I think everyone was thinking that this was a very important game. The fans, the players, the staff. So it was an emotional night. Just when everybody was singing the national anthem, you could see that Gustavo Gomez was crying and with his teammates. And I was thinking right before the game, this is not good, because when you head into a game that emotional, when you head into a game, you know, just putting the emotions in front of you and not being smart about it, you can have trouble with the ball. And we had trouble with the ball. We were kind of anxious about the whole situation. And we had an attacking team, but in front of us, we had Venezuela that played on a counterattack. And they quickly knew our plan, and they set up that way to really make it uncomfortable for us. They knew that Ramon Sosa was going to be one of our players in that first half, and they pretty much put 2 guys on him right away. And Ramon's, I think, only got one opportunity, and I was close to the end of the first half. He barely got one-on-one opportunities against his defender. So it wasn't a pretty sight in that first half, just because things weren't going our way. We had right away, I believe, that very good shot from Julio Enciso, who picked up the ball in half midfield, and you could see that Julio wanted to have one of those nights, right, where he felt that he could carry the team. And this is something that a lot of people have been talking about here, about Julio Enciso, what his role has to be in this team, what he can bring to this team, and why he wants to do everything in certain games and play more as a teammate, as a team player. And we kind of saw that in that first half, right? Especially in that penalty situation, where you could see that Diego Gomez took the ball and Julio Enciso came right in and said, no, I want this. And then you saw a couple of other experienced players coming in the situation, chipping in, giving their options, giving their opinions. But Julio wanted nothing to do with it. He wanted that ball. He wanted that penalty. And the way he kicked that ball, I mean, that's not what we were expecting at all. He barely got it off his foot, I would even say. And it was a very easy ball for the goalkeeper. I mean, the whole stadium was in shock. He was in shock. It took him, I think, even till halftime to recover from that situation. He was away from the game That I thought that in a certain moment he was going to be taken out because he wasn't contributing anymore. He didn't know what was going on in the game. He was totally gone from it. And thankfully, in the second half, we picked it up. And I want to go side by side, play by play, because it happened so quickly, right? I mean, Alfaro fixed it right away, and I thought that was key, guys. I mean, we've had this problem with other coaches before. Fix your own problems, fix your own team, make the subs, make the changes right away. Why wait so long? Garnero had this problem during the Copa America. The other coaches also, Berizzo, Schelotto, they didn't want to look at their own mistakes and say, I can fix this. And Alfaro fixed it. He knew that Ramon Sosa was having trouble. He knew that the ball wasn't getting to Isidro Pita, and it needed to be somebody else stepping up. Thankfully, it was Tony Sanabria. And I was just talking to somebody the other day and about the whole situation with Tony Sanabria and him being such a European player and the team never being able to play up to his level. And I think that was a real situation, guys. I mean, I don't think the team was up to him, not him being up to the team after what the performance that he had, really coming in and changing the whole game. Really props to Tony Sanabria. Really happy for this guy. Another huge performance from him. It was Diego Gomez against Brazil, and everyone's going to be remembering this night from Tony Sanabria for a very long time, especially if we make it to the World Cup, Ralph.
Yeah, it was such a kind of important moment, and to see him not get a minute in the last combo, right? He didn't get any game time, and the Sanabria of old wouldn't have turned up for these two games if we're honest. I mean, we've seen it before, and we kind of saw that with Garnero. Garnero had him in, and then he didn't go bring him because it sounded like he just didn't want to make the effort. But whatever Alfaro was doing is he's made an effort to kind of give him some special treatment, and he's a special player, as he proved with those two goals. I wanted to talk though firstly that first goal that Paraguay conceded. This is where it gets interesting, I think, because it's the exact same goal they concede to Colombia. It's a right back again, scoring just like Munoz. That time it was Enciso not covering. This time it was Sosa. They were really trying to pen in Soteldo, because Soteldo was having such a good game. But of course, by doing that, they were leaving the far side a bit exposed. So what's really interesting is there are still things to work out. These little kinks that we saw in the Copa America are still there. The difference is, again, that mentality, right? Instead of conceding a second goal, which is what happened in the Copa America, Paraguay conceded one and then another one came very quickly. Instead, they went down the other way and they nearly got the equalizer and probably should have. You were saying about Diego Gomez had the ball instead of Julian Cisa. I mean, for me, Pita could have taken it too. He's been taking penalties at Cuiabá, been scoring. So again, there's that question, right, about as we're talking about, like, isn't Cisa trying to take too much of a role in this team, a leading role, when he's actually still only 20 years old? But that's maybe for another day, because I don't want to take away from the positives of that second half particularly. And what we really saw was, because it was such an attacking team, Diego Gomez actually had to play a bit more, a bit further back, right, and help out Cuas, which meant that we got to see some of his passing range. And if we think about the first goal, I thought the first goal was excellent, right?
Wonderful pass from Gomez right there.
Gomez long ball to Alonso. Alonso gets the cross in perfectly, and it's and then Sanabria is the man in the box, right, which is what he does, and he finishes that. He's just scored a goal at the time of recording, I think yesterday, right? Also a header in the box. He's that kind of danger man, and so that was such a good goal, and that really lifted Paraguay, and it lifted Julio Enciso, like Fede was saying, because Enciso we weren't sure about how he was going to play, but in that second half, there were points where he was just at his unplayable best again. And you could see like he was being lifted up by the team rather than him trying to take the team with him, which we've seen in a lot of opportunities. So what it's all pointing to is that idea of there are many leaders or many people with different roles in this team that are able to come good at the moment that they need it. And that's putting them in this very strong position as we go into the next round of qualifiers.
I think we also need to make some mention to the experienced players. I think Almiron definitely enjoyed that kind of match. It was actually the pass from Gomez came from Almiron and then went to Junior Alonso for the first goal. And then the second goal, obviously, Enciso gets that header, and then Sanabria goes and rebounds it. So we also see, and Angel Romero played a good part on that. So I think Fede, this was a match where really, as much as Sanabria, and we can even say he is an experienced player because he has been on this team for quite some time. It really was the night where the experienced players come in. Obviously, Diego Gomez is a special kind of player, and it deserves to be mentioned, him and Enciso. But we really saw like those big experienced players that maybe have failed us in the past, but they all stepped up. Junior Alonso, Almiron, Sanabria, Angel Romero, and so on, even in the defense with Gustavo Gomez and Omar Lerete. So that was really kind of something that I think they can feel happy to redeem themselves. I think the fans have always felt a bit very much at odds with them. And I think what we saw, even in this game and in the three games before, that they're kind of recovering that sort of love again that missed them for so many years in the past.
Yeah, something that really caught my attention after the game against Venezuela was, I think, Miguel Almiron's statement saying something about Alfaro giving them back the confidence that they never had with other coaches, and that was kind of a shock to me. And you can see that these players are really fighting for a cause. They know what their role is in that pitch in every single game. They know who they have to cover. They know what they need to do, and when they have the opportunity to be themselves out there, they can do that. And I think that's why we've seen this Miguel Almiron lately. And I love what you mentioned, Roberto. Talking about the experienced players, and it's the combination of these two generations, right? The new ones with the Diego Gomez, the Julio Encisos, the Ramon Sosa, and the old guys still in the locker room, trying to lead them on the way and helping each other out. I think that's one of the good things that Alfaro has been able to do, convince everyone that this is a team game and that we need absolutely everyone to get it done. And against Venezuela, I mean, I don't know if you guys found the player that played bad. I mean, everybody chipped in somehow. Everybody is playing their heart out there. So you got to be. That's why I think people are feeling good about this team. They feel recognized with what they see out there. But we got to touch on some certain things, right? I mean, this Julio Enciso situation, this needs to be reviewed. This needs to be talked with him. We'll see how he moves forward from this situation. We're seeing that in Brighton, he doesn't have the spot that we or everybody thought that he was gonna have by this season. He's kind of losing his spot there, and in the national team, he's starting to let go of certain opportunities. Even though I do think he ended up pulling through in the second half, he showed the best of him. And after Alfaro really probably talked to him in halftime, he talked about that situation in the press conference, that he shook them up. He even told him that, man up, be a man. This is a man's game. And you could see that Julio really was a man out there in the second half. He started giving the ball to his teammates. He was very important on the goals. And I'm happy for that second half. But that first half, he needs to learn from that situation. I mean, that can cost you a World Cup. That can cost you the ticket, Roberto. And thankfully, the guys picked it up in the second half. If not, we were gonna be talking this whole podcast about Julio Enciso and that penalty.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting case because I think, what, and I'm kind of alluding to this, what you're saying, Fede, is that perhaps Enciso, as much as he is a very talented player and we obviously recognize his talents, I feel like he definitely still has a lot of maturity to grow up. And again, he is 20, but you look at players like Diego Gomez, kind of in the same age group, he's performing well above his years. So yeah, it's a good question to really go for, Ralph. I think, is this the case where maybe Enciso definitely has a bit of growing up to do? I mean, again, we've spoken about him countlessly ad nauseum, but do you feel like maybe this game kind of, gave us really our confirmed our doubts of like what Enciso isn't capable of doing?
In a way, yes, but it's also part of his magic and his genius. So because he's so single-minded, he's a very single-minded player. And remember, I mean, I remember him scoring the penalty for Libertad against Olimpia, final minutes, and he does the same thing. He's like, I want to do it. And you have like Taquara on the pitch, probably, or definitely more experienced players. So it's part of what makes him the player he is, and it's also the part that makes him so difficult to play against because he is very mercurial, right? You kind of don't know what he's about to do in any given moment. So the it's difficult to try and say put him into the Diego Gomez box, whereas obviously Gomez is the mentality is he was captain in the Olympics, right? It's a different kind of mentality in a way. But at the same time, it's rare. The Gomez moment, for example, against Brazil is very rare. Whereas Julian Cesar, we get a lot of those, right? You get the Man City goals, the Chelsea goals. So he's a different type of player. And I guess the difficulty for Alfaro is how do you maintain that sort of genius that he has without it getting out of control and potentially damaging the team. I mean, I think the big question is, and this is another thing that's almost gone under the rug or under the carpet because Paraguay are winning games, is there's clearly some kind of issue, I think, with people like Gustavo Gomez and Julio Enciso. I also saw Fabian Balbuena at the Copa America was not enjoying Enciso losing the ball in certain positions, right? Because for a defender, it's a nightmare. But I think, we know Gomez, whatever happened in the Copa America, we don't know exactly, but Gomez fell out big time. He didn't play a single game. He had issues, and whether it's something to do with Enciso or not, you can kind of pick, read between the lines that was maybe where it was going. Something was there. The question is now, okay, everybody's winning. Is everything okay? But do you still need, if you have Gustavo Gomez as your captain, does he need to be telling who's taking the penalty kicks? And it really shouldn't be Enciso, just as we're talking about. You have Peter, for example. I think Peter must be the natural penalty taker just because he takes them at club level. So there's still a couple of these things to iron out, but it's almost we're able to go past it because Paraguay at the moment are picking up points, and if they keep doing that, I think these things will be fine. What we don't want to is results start getting affected, and then a couple of things could reach boiling point.
And then again, that's all, up in the air because, we don't know what they're going to do against Argentina and Bolivia, but, we would assume that they're going to be able to get the results there. And yeah, I think it's the question of Alfaro being a good motivator, Fed. I think that's kind of been the main thing of this all is that you get a guy who is kind of the middleman to try to deal with all of these scenarios, like Ralph said, with Sanabria not being able to get his time to shine, and here he is scoring 2 goals even though he didn't play a single minute so far. You look at someone like him telling Enciso, hey, you need to man up. It's a man's game. Or, trying to obviously, even in situations where I recall when, in the game against Brazil, I think there were some questions about why Velasquez didn't play because he did so well against Uruguay. And then he deals it with Cáceres. So I think this is kind of a thing that I think Alfaro comes in at the right time, that he has to deal with a lot of egos there. And I think dealing with those kind of egos and trying to build that unity, obviously helps and creates a good harmony and all that. So I think it would be really negative to really just say maybe there's still some problems out there. There obviously are things to fix heading into these 2 games, but you could feel as though there is that confidence given from Alfaro to these players, and that the players are kind of receptive to that as well.
Yeah, I don't know if Alfaro should have been smarter about the situation and probably put something on that contract that if he was gonna start winning, he should be making more money, guys. Because I don't even think he was waiting for this situation to happen. And look at all the good picks that he's made so far. I mean, pretty much every player that he's picked so far has brought something to the table. From Juan Cáceres, which is somebody that I think we're gonna miss against Argentina because he's one of the players that can't play. After getting another yellow card, Bobadilla in the midfield, he's a regular now, even though he didn't play this last game against Venezuela because they needed to make room for that offensive team. And we're seeing the best Almiron also. I mean, he's even picking up players that look like they were already dead, that they were already done. Who was saying that Almiron was going to be the star of this team after 3 or 4 games under Alfaro? Probably no one. And he's really found that situation, and he's making everyone better because he's being simple about it. He's going back to the roots. He's always talking about that situation. He's even having tereré with the guys. He's sharing in the locker room. He's feeling young again with these boys. He even said it the other day after beating Venezuela, guys, this might be the last team I manage, and that's huge. That's a big responsibility on the players. I mean, he's putting it all on them to make it to the World Cup, to have a huge tournament. and they're really believing on each other. They're relying on each other, and I think Alfaro has been very smart about that, of making everyone come together. I've mentioned this before: be brothers out there in the field, but also out when these guys are sharing practices, when they're sharing their everyday life. You could see that they're coming together as a whole, as a team. They're sharing more as teammates, and I think in football that's huge. I mean, it's a lot harder to beat a team of friends out there, like a coach says it all the time here in Paraguay, Carlos Jara. I'm seeing that union, guys, and that's what I'm loving about it, because I'm seeing a team now. Before it was maybe one or two guys doing a good job, but now it's everyone playing their best, and that's what that's what actually has me motivated of going to the next World Cup. I think that's what has everyone going to the stadium lately. I mean, we've had 2 packed houses in these last 2 games. It's going to be boiling hot against Argentina. I don't think a lot of people are going to be going crazy about Messi. There's already rumors going on that hey, if anybody wants to root for Messi, we're gonna go against him because we want to beat this Argentina now. We want to go to the World Cup. We want to beat the world champions. We feel like anything is possible now, guys, after winning 2 at home after so long.
I think, yeah, and kind of closing out, heading into these 2 games, we got obviously 2 very difficult ones. Argentina at home, like you said, at a really boiling hot Defensores del Chaco, and then going all the way to El Alto in altitude against Bolivia. I mean, Ralph, this is the state. These are the 2 statement games for Paraguay. If they really are serious about qualifying for the World Cup for real, these are the games to get results in. Honestly, I really would love another. I mean, we're not doing our predictions, obviously, but Paraguay have to go for this win. They have to go for it. I feel like that is kind of necessary for them, kind of relive all those magical nights from the past. If they want to make it to the World Cup, they need to get these games, they need to get these wins at home and then snatch something away in Bolivia.
Yeah, it's interesting because it will be the other way around, right? So far it's been the away game first, then the home game. This way is the home game first, then the away game. Um, which is worse in a way when you're going to altitude, because when you come down from altitude, you supposedly have, more red blood cells and you're actually fitter from having been there. But let's see how it goes. There's so much that can happen in these next few weeks because of injuries that could happen to players. So I'm always wary of what kind of team we'll see. But I think ultimately you're going to see a very similar setup against Argentina that you saw against Brazil. So I think you'll still have 4 at the back, but you're not going to have these, assuming they're all fit, the 4 or the 5 really attacking players, if you include Gomez there with the front 3 and then behind Pita. I don't think you're going to see that. It's going to be more what we saw against the Brazil game. So one of Sosa or Almiron probably wouldn't be able to start that game. And just the very same thing, right? Making it very tight, making it very difficult, trying to stop people like McAllister playing. Because I know we all talk about Messi, but it's really just stopping the ball getting to him, right? Because once he gets the ball, there's not much you can do, especially in the form he's on at the moment. He's just scored another hat trick at the one against Bolivia. And then I think he got another one for Inter Miami. So it's really going to be a tough game. If they get the win, I mean, it sets everything up so well. For Bolivia, I don't know. El Alto is really totally different to Quito. I mean, it's almost twice as high. It's just a totally different thing because, every kind of 100 meters or 200 meters as you get higher, the air's thinner. It really does affect you. So I don't know what we're going to see against Bolivia. I really don't know if we're going to be able to do something similar to that we did in Quito and hold out for those whole 90 minutes, but that might be the way it's going too, right? Another 0-0 away at altitude could be the kind of plan we see from Alfaro there.
4 points, Fede. Is that something that is feasible? I mean, obviously we're not doing predictions, but is that something that you're dreaming about? Because obviously with those 4 points, Paraguay would be with 17. And I think it takes 20 or 21 to take you to the World Cup, but it's just continuing that momentum to get results. And I think Paraguay really want to be in a position where they don't have to worry on the final days of sweating it out to qualify.
It's almost impossible to play up there, guys, in Bolivia, especially where they're playing now in Altos. I saw the goal that they scored the other day. That ball, I don't know, it went around 200 kilometers an hour to the goal. I mean, it's crazy, you know, just the way the ball moves up there, how hard it is to breathe. I think we're gonna have probably, just like everyone else so far that has played there in this South American qualifiers, I think we're gonna have a very hard time. The game is, I believe, against Argentina. Argentina lost points against Venezuela. They lost against Colombia already. This team is the world champion, but maybe they are kind of relaxed in certain matches. You never know what happens with this team in certain games. So I think we've been up to the task. We played very well against Uruguay. We played very well against Brazil. We beat Brazil at home. We got the momentum going on. The stadium is going to be by our side. Obviously, this is going to be the last opportunity to see Messi here at Defensores del Chaco. That's going to be quite special for everyone that night. But we want to get it done, guys, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get it done with just a penalty and not concede a single goal. I mean, I want something like that, you know, not let them do absolutely anything and be the team that needs to be that night, the strongest team out there. I think we're gonna have to step it up. We're gonna have to show the best version of ourselves. And just when you thought that you've already gone through the worst teams, here comes Argentina. Here comes the world champion, guys. So you got to step it up. I think this is one of those games where we're really going to see just how worked and ready this team is for the World Cup. Because I'm already thinking about the World Cup, guys. As of right now, we're going to the World Cup.
Calma, we got time. We don't want to jinx anything. But Ralph, I mean, to close it out, I mean, this is something that, you know, is in that kind of mystique and it's in that history. A lot of these players have grown up. Some of them have even beaten Argentina as well. So they want to be part of those history books. I could remember, you know, the famous 1-0 wins in 05 or in 09, or Delis Gonzalez scoring against Argentina in Cordoba. I think these boys, especially given the opponent, given the rival, they want to create history like they did against Brazil and of course against Venezuela this month and last month.
Yeah, so it was a huge game. I mean, that we just talked about the under 15s at the top of the show. They knocked out Argentina in the semifinals on penalties. It's always a huge match, and some of them will have won. I'm just thinking of the under 20s in the Preolímpico. They will have gotten results as well. But I think the idea of beating the senior team with Messi in there is going to be such a huge motivator. Alfaro doesn't really need much to do much more motivating. He's pretty good at it anyway. But I think we're gonna see a really good game. I think. Like I say, we're not doing predictions. Don't want to go there, but it's going to be one of those classic nights that the last few times that big teams have come to Defensores del Chaco, we haven't been looking forward to it because we kind of expected to get beaten. But now I think it's back in almost in the Martino qualifying era where you were like, bring it on, right? Bring these teams. I think we're going to beat them. We're going to do something. We're going to shock them. And so it's back to that. And it's going to be a great atmosphere. It's going to be sold out and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Fede, I think me and Ralph are going to be absolutely jealous that you'll be in that Calderon of the Defensores del Chaco. And I can already, like, again, we're not doing our predictions, but man, another famous night in Asuncion against Argentina. I mean, that's the stuff of dreams for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, and just like I said, it's going to be a special night because we're going to have one of the best players in the world coming here. And I think we're going to see a crazy Messi mania going on here in Paraguay because people do love him. They follow that last World Cup intensively, and I think they're going to be on top of him. And we saw him lose here in Defensores del Chaco. We saw him win. We saw him have all types of results, guys. So we'll see how we end up at this last game. I have my hopes up. I think everyone here in Paraguay thinks it's possible now. A couple of months ago, I think it looked very impossible. But as of right now, we have our core players. We have a team that we're pretty much repeating in every game, and we might just change up the strategy, change up one or two names, but the team is there, guys, and we're building on something. We're not thinking that much about Argentina. We're thinking more about what Paraguay can do in this game.
Continuing to ride that wave, and we're going to have to continue to do that for next month. I'm excited. I'm sure you guys are excited. I'm sure everyone else listening is really looking forward to these two games against Argentina and Bolivia, and we'll always, as we do here at Guarani Vision, talk about it in the next few weeks as we close out another great episode of Guarani Vision. For myself, Roberto Rojas, Fede Perez, and Ralph Hannah, thank you so much for listening in. See you soon.